With smartphones coming in left, right, and center from all types of manufacturers in the market and Xiaomi frequently launching new devices, is the Redmi 6 Pro a device that you should be looking at? My name is Bharat, you're watching iGyaan. Today we're going to be reviewing the new Redmi 6 Pro. So let's quickly get started. The phone has been out in China for a while and a lot of people have already seen this device. It's a great performing phone for the price bracket that it's in at. It's a budget phone and it'll offer up some interesting features despite its low price tag. Now the phone is available in two options, one with a 3GB plus 32GB capacity while the other with a 4GB plus 64GB capacity. We've had the 4GB plus 64GB phone for over a week now, and in this review we'll try and answer most of your questions. At the outset, the Redmi 6 Pro is built rather well. It's got a metal back which sits on a plastic top and bottom, which will allow for the antennas, including the Wi-Fi and the cellular antennas, to go through easily. The overall frame of the phone is nice and rigid. It doesn't squeak or rattle, it doesn't bend or twist in any way. It's a nice, well-built phone. Now, despite being a pretty comfortable size device, it does have a 5.84-inch display. This is a 2280 by 1080 pixel display. 19:9 aspect ratio on this display with a notch on the top. You do get a total 432 pixels per inch. The display is nice to look at, it's bright, it's vibrant, it's good to use indoors as well as outdoors. The viewing angles could have been better. It does fade out into the darkness if you move towards the left or right, but this is the case we've seen with most devices in this price bracket. I would have liked to see slightly better viewing angles, but this is a good display overall and colors and saturation is on point. It's not overly saturated and it looks good to use. Now, if you enjoy watching videos or streaming content on your smartphones, you'll find that the display is pretty good for that. It does remove the notch area completely, so you get a straight video on the edge, even though on the right side or on the bottom edge of the display you will see rounded corners, which is what the display is like. Also, for those who are interested in DRM status, this also only supports the Wildvine L3 DRM, which means that you will only get SD streaming on apps like Netflix, which is quite a bit of a disappointment because the display in itself is a Full HD Plus display. The speakerphone is also quite tinny and low in volume, so I would recommend getting a good pair of headphones. The audio out of the 3.5mm headphone jack is pretty good to listen to. Phone runs Android 8.1 out of the box. It will get the Android 9 update. It also has MIUI 9.6 also out of the box, along with a few updates that you'll get the minute you turn the device on. I would recommend that you install these updates. Overall, the UI is quite smooth and responsive. I haven't seen any lag on this device in the days that I've used it. I also turned off navigation at the bottom and enabled gestures, which I find is a much easier way to navigate through Xiaomi's MIUI 9 because now it supports it well. Overall performance from the device was as expected. Now, on benchmarks with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 625 chipset on this device, the phone has 8 cores on 2 GHz along with the Adreno 506 GPU. For benchmarks, Antutu gets a score of around 77,000, whereas apps like Geekbench kept crashing while running the benchmarks, which was a little bit of a letdown because we couldn't really test this device in that, but we have a general idea basing it on Antutu that this is in the range of most other devices that offer similar chipsets. As far as gaming is concerned, apps like PUBG will only run at lower graphics as default, but the gameplay experience is not hindered in any way. You can up the graphics quality from the settings panel, but you will not get a really good experience. If you're playing games on this, again, I would recommend that you use headphones because the audio volume from the speaker itself is not that great. The gaming experience in itself was pretty impressive and I thoroughly enjoyed playing games on this phone, which is something that a lot of people who buy this device will be doing, so you will not be disappointed with that. Along with that also comes a 4000 mAh battery, which will allow you to game for longer periods of time. In the box is a 10 watt charger, which takes a fair bit of time to charge up the device, but it is a good accessory or a good inbox accessory to have. I would have preferred a faster charging capability on the device, and we do not have that. You also get the micro USB port at the bottom, which also is a slight bit of disappointment on the phone, but it does not hinder experience in any way. And a lot of people still have micro USB chargers, so in a way it's a good thing because you will not need to buy many chargers for your device because you probably have an extra micro USB charger lying around. Now, if you're going in for the Redmi 6 Pro, I would recommend that you get the additional 4GB RAM variant instead of the 3GB RAM variant, because it will help you that much more in terms of optimizations, performance, and gameplay. If you're not going to be doing gaming or heavy intensive usage tasks, then I would recommend that you stick with the 3GB variant because you will not need the additional gigabyte of RAM. Storage wise, you do have a dedicated slot, so whether you get the 32GB or 64GB, it doesn't really matter because you can pop in a micro SD card up to 256GB in the dedicated slot, which will allow you to get the additional storage. Let's come to the cameras. On the back is a dual setup of cameras, a 12 megapixel plus a 5 megapixel. Both of them are on f2.2, but the 12 megapixel one does have a larger 1.25 micron pixel size, which also means that low light performance is good on this device, along with the capability of sensing depth. The 5 megapixel camera is basically used to sense depth and give you a really good overall output from the images. Here's a quick look at some of the pictures that we took from the device. Now, video is capped at 1080p, only at 30 frames per second, which again is a slight bit of a disappointment. It does have gyro-enabled electronic image stabilization, which works rather well if you're moving around or capturing video on the go. This will give you pretty stable video. You will see the electronic stabilization coming into play most of the time, but it should not affect your video quality that much. Overall, video is not the strong suit of the Redmi 6 Pro, and it is something that should have been slightly better, but a lot of people still don't use video that much, so it's not a big deal. The front-facing camera is a 5 megapixel camera. It does a fairly good job, and being a single sensor, it manages to find depth really well. It manages to outline the edges of the subject rather well and defocus the background. Overall output from this was also good. You can apply filters on the fly on this, and you can also apply things like beauty mode, etc. on the phone while capturing images. The phone also does have a really fast fingerprint sensor at the back, along with Face ID or face recognition to unlock the device, which also works rather well in well-lit environments. It doesn't work in low light. That's when you'll have to use the fingerprint sensor. Now, phone call capability and network performance with the Redmi 6 Pro was pretty good. We found that network strength, as far as the indicators are concerned, were lesser on the Redmi 6 Pro in comparison to the Poco F1, and we also found that Wi-Fi range is not that strong, and even though it supports 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks, the range is quite limited on that, and you really need to be really close to the router to be able to use a 5 GHz network. If you're using this device, I would recommend sticking to the 2.5 GHz one. Overall, the Redmi 6 Pro comes in to a market which is already full of devices and options for people. It does give you a more modern design, a display with a notch that you can hide in case you don't want it, but it also brings all of Xiaomi's usual features, so it's more of an upgrade for those who want an aesthetic appeal. It's a much more modern design. You get more screen real estate. You still have a little bit of a chin at the bottom and considerable bezels on the side, but the overall display and the look of the phone is pretty modern, along with the vertically placed cameras at the back, giving it a really nice feel in the hand as well. The phone is rounded off, and you do get a case inside the box in case you find the phone slippery. All in all, it's a good package, and if you're in the market, this is a pretty good phone to consider. If you have any other questions or queries, you can drop them in the comment section below. If you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not already a part of Team iGyaan. This has been Bharat. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one.